Never trust a teleprompter. Especially when someone's paying for every word you say. The studio lights were a religion, hot, unforgiving, and convinced I needed salvation. The glass desk gleamed like a frozen lake. On the other side, Senator Noah Winslow smiled with the serenity of a man who believed applause could be direct deposited. My name wasn't anywhere on the chyron beneath him, campaign architect, speechwriter, ghost, but my words were already climbing out of his mouth. And that's why hope isn't a slogan but a promise, he read, voice dipped in summer honey. In my earpiece the director hummed, "We're wide in 5, Finn." Then cut to the pull quote. "Don't freak out." I never freak out. I compartmentalize. I label the boxes. Sometimes I even color code the labels. Freaking out is for people who haven't seen how the sausage of democracy gets made, and then plated with a sprig of parsley. The teleprompter blinked green. A harmless, procedural blink. Then the sentence at the end of my carefully tuned cadence shifted, a tectonic plate sliding under the ocean. Pharos, for a brighter tomorrow. The font was the same. The weight, identical. But I didn't write that line. I don't sell cathedrals without checking the foundation, and I don't write Pharos in a speech unless I want to light the whole city on fire. Sweat crawled between my shoulder blades, as I mouthed the words silently. Pharos biotech. Philanthropy wrapped around a bone cage. The people who funded whisper campaigns and empty suits. Who believed conflict of interest was merely a pharmaceutical interaction. The senator's voice flowed on, unaware, like a gondolier headed toward a waterfall. In 3 sentences he'd arrive at the altered line. He'd gift wrap our campaign, and bow to a donor that couldn't be named out loud. Millions watching, half of them on phones, the other half already angry at something else. I slid a hand into my jacket, found the emergency pen I never used. Ink is a ritual. It steadies me. I kept my eyes on the teleprompter as if I could hypnotize it back into the safe version. It stared back, glassy and pleased with itself. 30 seconds, the director said in my ear. Big finish. Smile, Finn. I can hear you not smiling. Victoria Klein, our campaign manager, stood behind the cameras in a black blazer, sharp enough to perform surgery. Her expression promised all kinds of feedback later, none of it printable. She didn't know yet. When she did, glaciers would envy her composure. The senator reached the runway of the final paragraph. And I stand here tonight to say, I moved. Not physically. I'm not the moving type on camera, too easy to catch on a wide shot and look like nervous scenery. Internally though, I ran through the calculus. If I yank the line, the cadence collapses. If the cadence collapses, the room hears the truth. If they hear the truth, we survive the night and die slowly. If I don't, we die beautifully right now. He inhaled. The teleprompter whispered betrayal. Pharos. My voice was in his ear already. We keep a small private channel in case he flubs. Change it, I said. Calm as a pharmacist. No time for argument. I fed him a new line like a wire across a canyon. And I stand here tonight, the senator said, obedient muscle memory answering a different brain. To say that our future must never be owned by laboratories or locked behind a paywall. A brighter tomorrow, he paused. God bless him, he always lands a pause. Isn't a trademark. It's the work we do together. Silence. Actual silence. The kind that hums because every person in the studio remembered to breathe at the same time and then forgot again. The captioner's fingers stuttered. The floor manager blinked a Morse code of surprise. The teleprompter scrolled, furious and impotent. The senator continued down the path I laid in 3 seconds flat. Swapping. The grafted corporate pitch with a clean artery. We will not license hope. We will regulate greed. We will put patience before profit. The applause started confused, then gathered weight, then became a wave. The director exhaled into my skull. Okay, Finn. That was, God, I love you and also I'm going to jail. Victoria didn't clap. She rarely clapped unless stocks were involved. She just angled her head, calculating. I could feel her assessing exactly which server room she had to set on fire to find who'd altered my draft. Cut in 3, 2, and we're out. The red light above camera 3 went dark. The senator beamed, shook the moderator's hand, and I stood because standing is what you do when everything you own is suddenly made of glass. Backstage, the air tasted like hairspray and nerves. Assistants swarmed the senator. Victoria glided toward me. A storm in heels. You changed the ending. You're welcome, I said, and offered the kind of smile that can be reinterpreted later. You don't ad-lib policy, she said, low enough to be intimate and high enough to cut. We vetted that language. You vetted a donor, I said. I rewrote a confession. Her eyes flicked to the intern holding her tablet, and then back to me. Control the witnesses. Control the narrative. If there was a tampering incident, you bring it to me. I am bringing it to you, I said, spreading my hands. One tampering incident. Freshly avoided. Who inserted it? She didn't blink. I didn't see, I lied, which is a funny verb for a profession built on precision. I hadn't seen. But I had a short list coded in bone. The senator's brother-in-law, 2 donors with new tans, and a man from Pharos who never leaves a fingerprint because he never touches anything twice. Victoria's mouth tilted. Find out. Of course, I said. Which was also a lie. I'd already found out enough to know I needed to leave. Noah Winslow emerged from the cluster of microphones with the stunned look of a man who dodged a bullet and only later realized it was aimed at his back. He grabbed my shoulder. Was that good? That felt good. It pulled well with my remaining soul, I said. We'll see about the rest of the country. He laughed, oblivious, and hugged a donor who wore an expression like a sunset, pretty and gone too soon. Victoria's hand tightened on my elbow. Office. Now. Bathroom. First. I didn't wait for permission. I slid away, past a lighting rig, through a door that said authorized personnel only and meant problems enter here. I wasn't going to the bathroom. I was going to my bag, to my copy of the draft in version control, to the little breadcrumb program I leave like a superstition. It wasn't much, but it could show me where the edit came from. Spoiler, probably a place with too much chrome. The corridor to the green rooms was cooler, quieter, like a secret the building didn't want to share. My heartbeat had moved from frantic percussion to a disciplined march, which is how I know I'm in danger. I start organizing it. I grabbed my bag, slung it on, and told myself I'd be gone 10 minutes. 15. Just long enough to pull a thread and see which sweater unraveled. I stepped into the elevator. The doors slid toward each other like a decision. A hand stopped them. The hand was gloveless, steady, and attached to a man who looked like he'd been carved from ordnance and taught to pass as civilian. Black suit, matte, no sheen. Tie knotted with the kind of no-nonsense that doesn't need a mirror. Eyes pale, winter sky over a quiet field. I knew his face. Everyone in the building knew his face. It was the one you didn't argue with after midnight. Ryan Hale, personal security detail assigned to the candidate. My shadow's shadow. He stepped in. Let the doors seal. The elevator accepted our ambition and began to fall. He didn't look at me. He faced forward, as if the wall required guarding. Nowhere, Morris, he said, voice low, made of gravel and restraint. Not tonight. I smiled, because masks work better when they show teeth. Wanna bet? His gaze slid to me then. Just the eyes, barely the head. The temperature dropped 2 degrees. No. The elevator hummed. Somewhere above us, applause tried to become thunder again. My phone vibrated in my pocket with an incoming storm of texts. Victoria would be calling. Pharos would be watching. The city outside waited to choose between truth and money, sometimes the same thing. I tucked my hands into my jacket and leaned back against the mirror, watching our reflections line up like suspects. I changed one sentence, I said lightly. No need to lock the exits. You changed the vector, he said. Whoever briefed him had used good words. Behind the mirror, my face looked annoyingly calm. A vector to where? He let the silence answer for him. It pointed down. The elevator kept going. I counted floors I couldn't see. I measured the space between his shoulders and decided unscientifically that it was about the width of a door you couldn't get through unless he moved. Worst case, he takes me back to Victoria. We role-play accountability, an NDA, signs me, and I go home to wash the smell of stage lighting off my skin. Best case, I get to my server, pull the edit trail, wake my friend Jude and run. There's always a third option. People rarely like it. The elevator chimed. The doors began to open. Ryan Hale shifted his weight just enough to be a fact. Nowhere, he repeated. I tilted my head. All polite knives. We'll see. The campaign headquarters is a cathedral of glass designed by someone who believes transparency is a decor choice and not an ethical stance. Walls that reflect you from 7 angles. Doors that close without sound. Every surface polished until it forgets fingerprints exist. Victoria waits for me in the war room, Which is funny because the only thing we ever fight here is reality. She's already there when Ryan and I arrive. She must have taken the stairs because of course she did. She's human espresso, concentrated, bitter if mishandled. Did you sabotage the broadcast? She asks. No hello, no preamble. The table lamp throws a thin blade of light across her cheekbone like she's been drawn in ink. I improved it, I say, setting my bag down, an innocuous sound against bulletproof glass. Her eyes don't leave my face. The line was vetted. The line was purchased, I answer. I returned it. No restocking fee. A muscle in her jaw registers dissent. Behind me, I feel more than see Ryan take up a position by the door. Not guarding me. Guarding the threshold, as if he knows that's the real animal in the room. He doesn't rustle, doesn't clear his throat, doesn't do anything cinematic. He becomes architectural. The kind of architecture you can't renovate. Victoria gestures to the chair. I remain standing. Power is a seating chart. You don't change endings on a live feed, she says. You don't change the vector mid-flight. See? I tilt my head toward Ryan without turning. He's rubbing off on you. Ryan says nothing. The lamp hums its agreement with no one. Victoria slides a folder across the table she knows I won't touch. There was no tampering with the file. Then a ghost learned my cadence, I say. Impressive. Can we hire it? She leans forward. If Pharos is involved, you bring it to me. You do not make us a target on national television. We were already a target, I say. I just drew the outline where everyone could see it. The glass wall behind her returns a gallery of fins, one with arched brows. One with tired eyes, one with a smile stuck between apology and dare. It's a fun house if your idea of fun includes a slow-motion breakdown of your tells. You won't be leaving tonight, Victoria says, as if reading from the weather report. We'll do a debrief. Then you can go home escorted. Escorted. I glance at the doorway where the building has grown a Ryan-shaped load-bearing column. By whom, I wonder? Her mouth does not become a smile. Security procedure, after incidents. Where were these procedures when someone rewrote my gospel? I ask. Finn, she says, patient the way bomb techs are patient, sit down. I sit. Not because she asked. Because I want to watch her watch me. The next 20 minutes are an interrogation disguised as alignment. Did I make the change alone? Yes. Did I have prior knowledge of the donor and the slogan? No. Had anyone approached me from Pharos? No. Not directly. They never touch anything twice. Did I save a copy of the original draft? Of course. Do I trust my own eyes? Most days. She takes notes with a pen that never squeaks. When she finishes, she caps it like a verdict. Bathroom break? She says, blandly. I'll live, I say. Take it anyway. She nods to the hall. It sounds generous. It feels like prison rec. Ryan falls into step the second I leave the war room. The mirrored hallway doubles him, 2 shadows, then 4. The building turns him into a pack. Comforting, I murmur. Either the decor committee was paid by Big Reflective, or someone really enjoys surveillance. His answer is soft gravel. Keep moving. They told you to babysit me all the way to the sink? I say, aiming for light. Because I floss alone. Procedure, he says. We pass an intern by the coffee machine who stares at us the way deer stare at headlights, captivated by the possibility of disaster. I smile at him with all my teeth. He pretends to answer an email from God. The men's room is chrome and quiet. I push the door and it whispers shut behind us. The mirror above the sinks shows me in triplicate. I wash my hands with drama, because sometimes you stagecraft for an audience of 1. You breathe on a tempo, I say to the reflection, rather than to Ryan. Did they train you for that? There's a small pause, and I'm smug for exactly half a second before he says, they trained you to lie beautifully. I look up. Our eyes meet in the mirror's shallow river. He doesn't look away. Neither do I. Something clicks, too loud to be a coincidence. My heartbeat. He angles his head a fraction. Your pulse just moved. It's called having a conversation, I say, toweling off. Some of us still enjoy it. We step back into the hallway. He takes his place half a pace behind me, not touching, close enough for the air between us to learn manners. Victoria wants me in the server room, I say casually as we walk. She asked me to pull the version history. I shape the lie like glass blown thin. Said you'd show me down. It's a neat, plausible sentence. It leaves a pleasant aftertaste. I sell it to donors all the time. Ryan doesn't change expression. Your heartbeat doesn't match your words, he says. Don't. I stop. The corridor keeps going without me. Excuse me? You lie with cadence, he says, almost clinical, as if cataloging a specimen. The rhythm is immaculate. But your body isn't a metronome. You can hear that? I ask. It comes out too quick. Nice trap, Finn. I can tell, he says. He doesn't elaborate. He doesn't need to. Something in the way he's looking through me, not at me, says he's mapping heat, scent, tempo, the physics of people. The realization slots into place with a click that's almost relief. You see through lies, I say. He says nothing. The silence agrees. Must be fun at parties, I add. Don't go, he says, not rising to the bait. Not tonight. Because Victoria asked? Because you won't make it to the elevator, he says. And there's no bravado in it, no menace. He's putting a pin in a map only he can see. For a beat, paranoia and curiosity go 12 rounds in my chest. What does he know? What does he smell? I think about the hallway cameras, the elevator landings, the way the lobby security guard always looks 1 inch over my shoulder. I think about mirrors. They don't show you the future, just the angle you're not looking at yet. Do you enjoy this? I ask. The shadow thing, the omniscience, what's the word, containment. It keeps you breathing, he says. There's an honesty to it that disarms harder than force. I hate that. How generous. We reach a glass door that requires a badge I don't have. He opens it for me with a key card that might as well be a key to my next decision. We step into a smaller corridor, no mirrors here, just matte paint, serious air. My reflection is gone. Only me, and the man who turns hallways into ultimatums. If I told you Victoria sent me to the parking garage for a smoke break, I try again. Lighter, brighter. Would you escort me like a gentleman? No, he says, and it's almost gentle. You're not going to the garage. I exhale, and it fogs against something invisible. I'm a lab rat with a sense of humor. You realize I could just keep lying until one of them matches. You could, he agrees. But then you'd get predictable. I hate how close that lands to a compliment. We stop at another door. Conference room. Frosted glass. Inside, my chair waits. The exact angle of the pen still a threat. I could go in. I could stay. He says, Finn. It is the first time tonight he uses my name like it belongs here. I'm working on the assumption you're not a jailer, I say. I'm working on the assumption you're worth guarding, he replies. Language is my weapon of choice. Instinct is his. It should be a mismatch. It isn't. It feels like 2 different maps of the same city laid on top of each other. And for the first time I notice how the streets align. Fine, I say, turning the handle. I won't go to the server room. Good, he says. I'll go later, I add. He doesn't sigh. He doesn't roll his eyes. He just says, precise as a clock, we'll see. We go back into the room of glass and version truth, and I swear the walls lean closer to listen. Rain was falling in polite sheets, the kind that didn't soak you immediately, just whispered, wait. Neon bled across puddles in colors too bright to be real. Violet, acid green, the sickly gold of the Pharos logo reflected from a billboard 3 blocks away. The city was humming, alive with exhaust and caffeine and lies that never quite died. I stood under an awning outside the Grandway Cafe, watching my reflection flicker in the glass. My pulse was a staccato under the rain's metronome. The flash drive in my pocket felt heavier than metal should. It held enough encrypted speeches, donor lists, and transaction records to either bury me or set me free, depending on who opened it first. Lyra should have been here already. 2 texts unanswered. Maybe she got scared. Or worse, smart. I tugged my hood lower and checked the time. If I didn't hand her the drive tonight, the evidence might disappear by morning. The servers had been wiped before. I'd seen the aftertaste of digital bleach. Pharos never left fingerprints, just the smell of ozone and dead ends. A car hissed past. Another, and then she was there. Lyra Young, journalist and former idealist, wrapped in a trench coat that had seen better causes. She looked like she'd run the last 2 blocks. Finn, she whispered. You look like you haven't slept. Occupational hazard, I said, stepping closer. You brought the recorder? She lifted her phone in answer. Is it true, you have proof? Proof, leverage, blackmail material, depends on your angle. I fished out the flash drive. Pharos has been embedding subliminal phrasing in Winslow's speeches. Behavioral conditioning through repetition. If they win the election, they win the narrative. Her eyes widened. Jesus. Don't thank him yet. I'm about to make your week or end mine. The words barely left my mouth before something in the air changed, like static before lightning. My skin prickled. And then, I knew. He was here. Ryan stepped out of the crowd, black coat absorbing the rain like it belonged to him. No umbrella, no hurry. Just presence. People moved around him instinctively, like fish parting for a shark they didn't realize was there. Of course, I muttered under my breath. The walking surveillance drone. He stopped 3 feet away, eyes on me, then on Lyra. Evening. Lyra blinked between us, confused. Friend of yours? Bodyguard, I said. Formerly known as unnecessary. Protocol, Ryan said simply. You weren't cleared to leave headquarters. Didn't realize I needed clearance to breathe, I shot back. Or to meet a journalist for coffee. His expression didn't flicker. You're compromised. Paranoid. He shifted slightly, just enough that the neon hit his profile like a blade. Get down, he said. I didn't move. Excuse me. The next second, glass exploded. Something slammed into the awning where my head had been a heartbeat ago. Ryan grabbed me, pulling both me and Lyra behind a concrete pillar as a second bullet shattered the cafe window. Screams. Chaos. The smell of cordite cut through the rain. What the hell? I started, but Ryan was already moving. Smooth. Fast. Too fast. He shoved me toward the alley. Go. Lyra stumbled after me, clutching her phone. Another figure emerged from the street. Black mask, pistol raised. Before I could blink, Ryan had closed the distance. A twist, a crunch, a body hitting wet asphalt. Efficient. Precise. Not human. I froze halfway down the alley, staring. He turned, eyes sharp, even in the gloom. Move. How did you? I smelled the iron, he said without looking back. The what? Their blood. People smell like iron when they decide to kill. That shut me up. More footsteps behind us. 3, maybe 4. Ryan caught my wrist, dragging me deeper into the maze of alleys. My lungs burned. My shoes slipped on rain-slick cobblestone. Lyra was gone, lost in the chaos. My chest ached with guilt. Or maybe just adrenaline. We burst through a rusted side door into an abandoned warehouse. The scent of oil and mold clung to the air. Ryan shoved the door shut behind us and turned the lock with one clean motion. Stay low, he ordered. I sank against a wall, chest heaving. They shot at me. They shot at me, he corrected, scanning the room. You were the collateral. Oh, that's comforting. My voice was shaking, which annoyed me more than the bullets. Who are they? Pharos assets, he said. Cleanup crew. Cleanup for what? For you. I stared at him. That makes no sense. I'm not. You are, he interrupted quietly. Whether you know it or not. He moved closer, crouching to check the corner window, rain blurring the world beyond. In that instant, with lightning slicing across the skyline, I saw what I'd been trying not to see all night. The inhuman precision in his movements. Too controlled, too measured. His pupils caught the flash and gleamed faintly, silver. Not reflection, not trick of light. Ryan, I said slowly. What are you? He looked back over his shoulder. For a second, the mask cracked, just enough to show something feral underneath, something old. The answer was not human. Later, he said. He pulled me suddenly closer, pressing me against the cold wall as the door shuddered. Someone testing the lock from the outside. His hand braced beside my head. My breath hitched. Let go, I hissed. If I let go you'll fall, he said evenly. His face was inches from mine, calm as a quiet storm. Stay still. The footsteps outside receded after a moment, swallowed by the rain. The warehouse went still again, except for the pounding in my chest. He stepped back, slow and careful, as if taming an animal. I tried for sarcasm, but it came out as something else entirely. You're not exactly standard issue, are you? He wiped blood, a stranger's not his, from his sleeve. Neither are you. What's that supposed to mean? Means we're both running out of people we can lie to. He started for the back exit. I stayed frozen a beat longer, staring after him, heartbeat still racing. Outside, thunder rolled, low and close, and for the first time, I wondered which one of us it was warning about. The safe house looked exactly like I'd imagined Ryan's personality would: square, steel, and allergic to comfort. One room, concrete walls painted the color of indecision, a cot folded in the corner, and a window that stared out at a narrow alley where the rain hadn't stopped in 2 days. He was crouched by the door, fixing a busted lock with the kind of patience reserved for monks and sociopaths. Sparks flickered, tiny lightning bolts in his hands. "You really live like this?" I asked, leaning on the table that doubled as a dining area, desk, and probably surgical station. He didn't glance up. "When I have to..." "Minimalist," I said. "Very end-of-the-world chic. I assume the coffee machine doubles as a weapon." His reply was flat. "It works better than people." "Ah." I nodded solemnly. "Steel and caffeine. Your personal philosophy." "Something like that." The lock clicked into place. He stood, wiping his hands on a towel that might have once been white. His jacket was off now, black t-shirt. Sleeves rolled to the elbows. The tattoos on his forearm looked less like art and more like coordinates. I sat down at the table, pretending not to be exhausted. "So this is where you take all your abducted clients?" "You're not a client," he said. "Right. Collateral?" He didn't argue, which was worse than denial. The coffee machine hissed. He poured 2 mugs and slid one toward me. I took a sip and nearly died. "What is this?" "Liquid trauma." "Strong," he said simply. "It's motor oil," I coughed. "If this is part of the interrogation, you win." He sat across from me, mug in hand. "It's designed to keep you awake. I'd rather be unconscious." "Then, it's working." Somewhere between the rain and the silence, the adrenaline began to fade. The warehouse, the bullets, the way his eyes had gleamed, everything blurred into a surreal afterimage. Now it was just the steady drip from the window frame, and his breathing, calm and metered. I glanced at him. "You always this talkative, or am I special?" "I conserve words," I noticed. "You ration them like ammunition." "That's the idea." "Efficient," I said, sipping again. "Also sociopathic." For a moment, I thought he'd ignore that too. Then the corner of his mouth moved, barely. "You talk enough for both of us." I almost laughed. Almost. Later, when the night stretched thin and the rain turned into a low murmur, I claimed the couch. The springs protested, but at least it wasn't the floor. Ryan took a blanket, spread it near the door, and lay down without ceremony. Like a guard dog with existential issues. "Do you ever sleep like a human?" I asked from the dark. "When I'm not on duty." "So, never?" No answer. Just the rhythmic sound of his breathing again. Steady, deliberate, grounding in a way that annoyed me. At some point I rolled onto my side and caught a faint glint near the base of the cot. A chain, half hidden under his jacket. I reached for it before I could talk myself out of it. A military tag. Scratched, worn. The name was barely legible. A. Hale. He spoke before I could ask. "Put it back." I froze. He wasn't looking at me, but I could feel the precision of his attention. Like a laser sight. "Sorry," I said, placing it where I found it. "Didn't realize it was classified decor." He exhaled slowly, the kind of sound that wasn't quite a sigh. "It belonged to someone else. A brother. A shadow. You speak in riddles, you know that?" "It's safer than lying." I propped myself on an elbow. "Do I get to guess which one of those you're doing now?" His gaze flicked to me then, the silver still faint under the dim light. "You don't want to..." That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. The air between us hung like static. Too thick to breathe, too alive to ignore. After a beat, he turned away, closing his eyes. "Get some sleep, Finn." "On this couch?" "Impossible." "You'll survive." "You always this encouraging?" Another pause. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. "Only with people who need it." Outside thunder rolled again, soft and distant. The safe house held its silence, sealed tight against the storm. And somewhere between the bitterness of the coffee and the warmth of his voice, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Just unsettled. Maybe that was worse. Morning arrived like a rumor. Thin light squeezing through the blinds. In pale ribs, rain playing its endless drum solo on the alley below. The safe house smelled like steel and burnt coffee. Ryan was a silhouette by the window, a shape between me and the weather, too still to be asleep and too quiet to be fully human. I rolled off the couch, every joint narrating its grievances, and pulled my laptop from my bag. The casing was scratched at the hinges, souvenir from a debate night that ended in a fire alarm. And the boot chime sounded indecently cheerful for a device about to confess a crime. I didn't need the campaign servers. I had my own copies. Drafts don't just vanish when you treat paranoia like a hobby. I'd left myself breadcrumbs. A little watchdog script that logged edits outside my user tree. A tracer. That mirrored change events into a hidden folder with an innocent name, meeting minutes, set Q3. I typed the passphrase, the folder opened like an eyelid. Inside, subfolders time-stamped in 2-minute increments during the broadcast window. Documents, hashes, a snarl of metadata. And then, nested deeper than I remembered putting it, a directory I hadn't named. Out resonance. A chill moved through me like fog. I clicked. Files populated the screen. Not just speech fragments. Not donor lists. There were PDFs with clinical fonts, CSVs with biometric columns. A neat, efficient language only bureaucrats and surgeons adore. One file name reached up and took my throat in its hand. Subject, 11 might latent.omega, resonator.pdf. Ryan, I said. Though it came out like an exhale. He didn't answer. Maybe he thought I was talking to the machine. Maybe he knew better. My finger hovered. I opened the file. Tables. Vitals. Neurolinguistic response curves mapped against rhetorical devices. Parallelism, anaphora, chiasmus, my name in the header. My initials in the sidebar. My blood type where my job title should be. A phrase repeated in clean black text, as if repetition could make it less monstrous. Subject 11. Latent omega resonator. My mouth went dry. Rain ratcheted higher outside, punctuation for a joke I wasn't in on. The summary was tidy enough to frame. Subject exhibits subclinical markers responsive to acoustic cadence, and group effect stimuli, potential to induce cooperative harmonic entrainment in surrounding populations, when exposed to high-stress choice environments. Effect amplified by authentic self-generated speech, projected use case, narrative neutralization, crowd de-escalation, vote behavior stabilization. There were charts with spikes that looked like heart attacks. There was a column labeled activation conditions. There was a column labeled containment. I scrolled, not reading so much as drowning. A photo captured me at a podium, head tilted, palm open. Red circles highlighted my throat. I slammed the laptop shut. The room forgot how to breathe. You knew, I said. Ryan didn't move from the window. I was told enough. Enough for what? My voice shook and sharpened at the same time. To babysit the lab rat? To make sure the merchandise got delivered unbruised? He turned then, slow and deliberate, like gravity had rules for him I didn't understand. To keep you alive. Don't say it like a kindness, I snapped. Say it like a job. His jaw worked, a small betrayal of control. It is a job. And I am a product. I could hear myself getting louder and couldn't stop. You knew I was, what? Subject 11, you knew about this. I jabbed a finger at the inert rectangle of my closed laptop. About the gene, the resonance, whatever fairy tale word they pinned to my spine. And you let me stand on stages and bleed stories for them, while they measured the chemistry. Silence filled every square inch between us. Outside, a siren woke and lost interest. I had orders, he said finally. I bet they were exquisite. My laugh sounded like broken glass. How long, Ryan? The whole time you've been watching me breathe, since the first rally, before that? He didn't answer. Which was answer enough. Rage shot through me, hot and clean. I reached for the laptop, yanked it open again, as if pain would make the data less real the second time. I found my name in columns labeled response latency and group synchrony yield. I found the euphemism I hated most, asset integrity. I'm not a speechwriter, I said. I'm a key. A key to switch on a room. He didn't argue. Say something, I ordered, because if he stayed silent I was going to throw the computer at the wall. Say you didn't know. Say it's a mistake. Say you're bodyguarding a human being, not a patent. I knew, he said. And each letter was an iron nail. But I wasn't allowed to disclose. It's not disclosure when it's my body. I tried to protect. You knew I was merchandise. The shout surprised both of us. It rattled the blinds. It made my throat ache the way ugly truths do when you drag them across your own teeth. His eyes flinched like I'd hit him. Just once. Then he came closer. Not close enough to touch, but close enough for the air to become a decision. I knew you were a living person, he said, voice low and even when the world decided otherwise. The line cut clean through my anger and into something raw. I hated that it did. I hated the room for hearing it. I hated the part of me that cataloged the cadence and filed it under true. I stared at the blinds, watched light turn them into a barcode. Do you know what it feels like, I said quietly, to read your name in a column that explains you? To realize every word you've ever said could be an instrument in someone else's hands? Yes, he said. The answer knocked something off its shelf inside me. How could you possibly? Orders aren't abstractions, he said, and the control in his voice thinned. They have faces. I did what I was told because it kept people breathing. Until it didn't. If you knew how many... He stopped, his throat working around the rest. When he spoke again, the steel had grit in it. If you knew how many I lost following good orders, you'd understand why I chose to follow this one badly. The room drifted, slow and unreal. For a heartbeat I saw the warehouse again, the masked men, the precise violence of his hands. Then I saw a blank corridor of years in which he didn't miss, didn't fail, didn't save the ones who didn't make it onto a report. I closed the laptop with a softer click. My palms left prints on the aluminum. Product. Asset. Subject. I wanted a shower and a new name. You should have told me, I said. I couldn't. You should have tried. I did, he said, and I looked up fast, but he wasn't looking at me, he was looking at the window, at the rain slicing the alley into beads. Every time I didn't drag you out of a room. Every time I said nowhere, and you heard prison. Every time I stood between you and the thing you couldn't see, instead of between you and the thing you wanted. I hated him for how much sense that made. I hated myself for the relief sneaking under the rage like a tide under a dock. I don't want to be this, I said. The truth came out small and vicious. I don't want to be a key. I'm a man who writes. That's it. That's all. He nodded once, and it wasn't agreement, it was witness. Then we make sure that's what you are. How? I asked. When there's a PDF that says otherwise? He didn't offer a plan. He didn't promise. He just looked at me like a vow and said, we start by not letting them decide. The rain softened, or maybe the day got louder. My chest hurt like I'd run a very long way without moving. You're still on their payroll, I said, because if I didn't throw a rock back in the water the quiet would drown me. So are you, he said. We let that sit between us until it cooled. I shut the laptop, slid it into my bag as if it were a live wire. The blinds sliced the light across Ryan's face in narrow bands, like a barcode. I wondered what he'd scan as, in their system. Weapon. Shield. Defect. He went back to the window, a figure cut out of silence. I stayed at the table, fingers threaded hard enough to leave little half-moons in my skin. Trust didn't break with a crash. It unstitched, one invisible seam at a time, until the cold got in everywhere. The rain had stopped pretending to be background noise. It was a rhythm, steady and insistent, filling the city like a pulse. The safe house felt too small now, the air heavy with everything we hadn't said since morning. My bag was packed. My decision was already standing at the door. I'm leaving, I said. Ryan didn't turn from the window. The blinds striped his face in light and shadow, barcode calm. I know. That's it? I said, waiting for the order, the warning, the argument. No. It's too dangerous. No, you'll get yourself killed. I don't give orders, he said quietly. Not anymore. Something inside me buckled at how easily he let me go. I should have felt relief. Instead, it landed like disappointment. Then don't wait up, I said. Because I needed the last word. I always did. The door closed behind me with a sound that felt final. Outside, the city had the look of a confession. It only told the truth when no one was listening. The street was slick, headlights stretching into ribbons. I didn't know where I was going. Freedom and fear often take the same route, and I was somewhere in between. Every corner reflected the Pharos logo in a different color. Their reach was a religion now, luminous and everywhere. I kept my head down, the hood up, hands shoved into pockets like that could hide me from algorithms and eyes. Halfway across the bridge I stopped. The wind off the river hit sharp against my face, carrying the smell of iron and rain. For a fleeting, stupid second, I thought it might carry peace too. It didn't. The footsteps came soft, synchronized. 3, 4, 5. The kind of rhythm that only trained people have. I turned slowly. Men in dark coats were moving through the fog, forming a half circle. No insignia, no badges. But I knew the pattern. The way they stood, the silence that didn't need communication. Pharos. My throat went dry. You're early, I said. The first man smiled under his hood. You're late. Something glinted. A syringe, not a gun. Extraction, not elimination. They didn't need me dead. They needed me silent. I took a step back. The river murmured under my feet, black and endless. You're making a mistake, I said. I'm not. Subject 11, one of them interrupted. Come quietly. My name wasn't Finn anymore. It was a barcode. The first one lunged. I moved without thinking, pure panic, ducking sideways. The syringe scraped my jacket, cold metal kissing skin. I hit the guardrail hard, pain bursting in my ribs. The man raised the weapon again. And then, he wasn't there anymore. A blur cut through the fog. Impact. The sound of bone meeting concrete. Someone flew backward into the railing, hit it, and didn't get up. Ryan. He came out of the dark like a storm given shape. Coat half open, eyes burning silver in the mist. The remaining men hesitated. Instincts whispering things their training hadn't covered. He didn't give them time. The first swing was too fast to follow, a blur of muscle and control. The second was silent, efficient. When one tried to flank him, Ryan turned, movement too fluid to be human. And his hand caught the man's throat, pinned him against the bridge rail. The air filled with the sound of rain, metal, and breath. I couldn't move. Couldn't even look away. When the last one fell, the fog swallowed the echo. The bridge was quiet again. Only the river kept moving, whispering disbelief. Ryan stood in the middle of it all, chest rising slow, head bowed. The rain traced silver lines down his face. His hands were still curled, like they remembered the fight. For the first time I saw what I'd only guessed, something wolfish behind the precision. The way his shoulders rolled. The low, steady growl under his breath. The glint of teeth too sharp for a man. Ryan, I said softly. He looked up. The silver in his eyes caught what little light there was, and for a heartbeat I saw them for what they were, not reflection. Not a trick. A confession. I managed. You're a wolf? He wiped blood, someone else's, from his hand. Sometimes. When I have to protect. The words were simple. But they carried something that made my chest tighten. I stepped closer, my shoes slipping on wet concrete. He turned slightly, as if to make sure I wasn't walking into another threat. The rain had softened now, each drop finding its rhythm again. They were gone. All of them. Only us, the bridge, and the ghost of violence. You shouldn't have come after me, I said. My voice sounded distant. You shouldn't have left alone, he answered. That's not an apology. It wasn't meant to be. I exhaled a shaky laugh that wasn't really a laugh. You're impossible. He looked at me then, and something inside that look wasn't cold anymore. Just tired. And true. The sirens were far away now. The fog was closing back in. I reached out before I could think better of it, laid a hand on his shoulder. The muscle under my palm was coiled steel, warm and alive. Now you're definitely off the leash, aren't you? Now, he said quietly. I'm choosing who I protect. By choice. Not order. Exactly. We stood there, the river whispering below, the city exhaling around us. Somewhere under the ache and exhaustion, something new flickered. Trust, maybe. Or whatever comes right before it. The rain picked up again, soft and relentless. Let's go, he said finally. For once I said, I'm not arguing. We walked off the bridge together, two silhouettes dissolving into the wet neon haze, between. The last echo of danger and the first breath of something dangerously close to peace. Jude's hideout was a cathedral of electricity. Every surface hummed with life, screens stacked like stained glass, wires curling from consoles like metallic vines. The air smelled of ozone, burnt circuits, and too much caffeine. In the corner, a holographic map of the city flickered in shades of blue, pulsing like a nervous heartbeat. Welcome to my temple, Jude said, rolling his chair across the concrete floor. Shoes off, egos outside. I ignored that last part. Tell me you have something. He tapped a few keys. Lines of data scrolled across a massive screen, sound waveforms, spectrograms, patterns that looked almost alive. I've got more than something, he said. I've got the infection. Ryan stood behind me, arms folded, unreadable as ever. Explain, he said. Jude gestured to the screen. Pharos built a backdoor into Winslow's campaign speeches. Linguistic code hidden inside the phrasing. They've been embedding subconscious command structures in broadcasts. Every time a voter listens, their brainwaves shift toward compliance. Compliance? I echoed. Obedience, Jude corrected. They used rhythmic frequency modulation paired with rhetoric. The cadence triggers microsynchronization in the audience. You know how crowds start to breathe together during a speech? Yeah. I frowned. That's the goal of every good writer. Right. Except they've weaponized it. With your speeches, the words hit harder than a bullet. Your drafts, Jude said quickly. Someone in the chain injected the patterns after you submitted them. Pharos has been running tests for months, through your phrasing. The laptop's glow felt too hot against my hands. I stared at the waveforms, smooth, hypnotic, human. My own sentences, distorted into machinery. So everyone who's watched Winslow's rallies is one subliminal nudge closer to surrender, Jude said. It's brilliant, in a sociopathic way. Ryan's tone was a blade. How do we stop it? Jude grinned without humor. You don't, not with code. They distributed it through a live linguistic network. Broadcast servers, podcast syndicates, social nodes. It's everywhere. Then there has to be a countersignal, Ryan said. There is. Jude pointed a stylus at me. Him. I blinked. Come again? Finn's voice, Jude said. It's the variable they didn't calculate. Pharos's pattern relies on artificial resonance, manipulated repetition. But your cadence is natural. It triggers authentic synchronization, not forced compliance. You can override it. Essentially, you're a human antivirus. I laughed once, sharp. Great. I've gone from speechwriter to malware patch. Jude shrugged. Welcome to the future. Ryan stepped closer to the screen. You're suggesting he broadcasts live? Exactly, Jude said. One clean frequency can wipe the corrupted signal. But it has to be real, genuine. If Finn reads from a script, it won't work. He needs to speak truth. Emotionally honest, unfiltered. Ryan shook his head. That's suicide. Pharos will trace the transmission in seconds. Probably, Jude said cheerfully. But it'll fry their system first. Probably, Ryan repeated, voice low and dangerous. That's your plan? Got a better one? They stared at each other, man and machine, predator and prankster. I rubbed my temples, trying to hear through the noise in my own head. Town hall, I said finally. Ryan turned to me. What? The old broadcast chamber, I said. Still wired to the city's emergency network. Live feed straight to every major channel if you trigger it manually. If I speak there, I can cut through their transmission in real time. Ryan's eyes narrowed. You'd also put yourself directly in their line of fire. Wouldn't be the first time. Finn. His voice softened. A warning, and a plea in one. You're talking about walking into their field with no shield, no command structure, no exit. I looked at him. Ryan, I've spent my entire career writing words for other people to say. I built cages out of syntax and called it hope. Maybe this time I want to see what happens when I mean it. He didn't speak for a moment. The hum of the monitors filled the silence, matching the thud of my heartbeat. Then he said quietly, You think truth will save you? No, I said. But it might save someone else. Jude looked between us, smirking faintly. You two need a slogan. Something like suicide, but make it noble. Shut up, Jude, we said in unison. The hacker grinned wider. Adorable. I stepped toward the projection. The city glowed in front of me, nodes of influence, Pharos facilities, the tangled grid of their control. At the center was the town hall, pulsing faintly red. The heart of the infection. Ryan came to stand beside me. For a long time neither of us spoke. You don't have to do this, he said finally. I do. I can't let you go alone. I turned to face him. You can't stop me. He studied me, the silver still faint in his eyes. Then, slowly, he nodded. I won't. But if you're walking into hell, I'm walking with you. Something tight in my chest eased. That sounded almost poetic. Don't tell Jude, he said. I heard that, Jude called from behind us. And I'm coming too, remotely of course. I like living. Ryan ignored him. We move tomorrow night. You'll have one shot to speak before they trace the feed. Then I'll make it count. He held my gaze for a long moment, the world narrowing to silver eyes and rain against glass. Finn, he said, quieter this time. Whatever happens, you're more than what they made you? Yeah, I said, smiling despite the fear threading through me. About time I start believing it. Behind us, the screens flickered, data shifting like tides. The hum of the city echoed in my bones, voices, pulses, lives waiting for something real. For once, I wasn't afraid of the noise. I was ready to speak. Town Hall had been designed to make people believe in themselves. Arch ceiling. Perfect acoustics. A stage that made even liars sound like prophets. Tonight, the house was full. Donors in careful suits, students with damp hair from the rain, city workers in shirt sleeves, reporters vibrating like tuning forks. 1,000 small storms under one roof. Backstage smelled like sawdust, panic, and cheap perfume. Cables coiled along the floor like sleeping snakes. The house band had just finished something optimistic. The echoes still held the shape of a major key. Victoria stood in the wings, a black silhouette cut from conviction and adrenaline. She didn't waste time. "If you say one word off script," she whispered, teeth barely moving, "they will destroy you." I studied her for a heartbeat. She looked like a person who had spent her life sewing parachutes for other people. "Victoria," I said gently, "I'm not jumping, I'm landing." "That isn't what landing looks like." Her gaze flicked past me, scanning the pit for problems. "Winslow is ready to introduce you. You read the text, you hit the notes, we get through the night." "And in the morning?" I asked. "In the morning," she said, "we still have a campaign. In the morning you still have a life." Behind us, Jude's voice crackled in my earpiece, a private line only we could hear. Network handshake caught. "I've got the feed spine. 2 minutes and I can jack the city's emergency relay. You'll have 90 seconds of unfiltered broadcast. After that they trace." "Copy," I murmured. Ryan was a shadow on the far side of the wings, coiled, still, everywhere without moving. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at everything else, the aisles, the balcony lip, the doors where danger liked to learn choreography. He tilted his head a fraction. Our eyes met. "You okay?" He didn't say. I nodded. No, I wasn't. Yes, I would be. The MC read my name. The applause came on cue, polite, curious, some of it sincere. I stepped into the light, and the light took me, hot and total. The hall breathed as one animal. My hands wanted to reach for paper. There wasn't any. I had the suit, the mic, and the wild idea that truth would carry its own script. "Thank you," I said. My voice sounded smaller than the room, then larger. I could hear it bounce off plaster and wood and people, returning like a bird that knew the way home. "I wrote a speech for tonight," I said. "I wrote a beautiful, safe speech. It told you you're the future, because you are. It told you we can do hard things, because we can. It told you we're better together, because we are." Soft laughter rippled. The room leaned in. "I didn't bring that speech," I said. A hush spread, the kind that makes you aware of your own pulse. "In my ear," Jude muttered. 15 seconds to inject. I could see Victoria at the edge of the stage. Suspenders tight control threaded through her posture. I could see 2 donors whispering like synchronized metronomes. I could see a girl in the front row holding her breath in both hands. "I didn't bring it," I repeated, because sometimes words keep the peace when the truth would start a rescue. The first murmur moved through the hall. I felt it, the way swimmers feel the tide changing under the surface. The Pharos pattern was in the room, sitting in the air like perfume, ready to nudge, soothe, quiet. I could almost hear it, a hum on the wrong frequency. Jude's voice turned bright. Now, injecting emergency override. You're live on every city channel." A light at the back of the hall went from green to white. I tasted winter. "My name is Finn Morris," I said. "I write speeches for a living. I love the craft. I love building a sentence that holds a person safely while they walk across a terrifying thought. I love language that makes us brave." The hum fought, braided into the plaster. I spoke into it. I also know what language can do when it's bought. When a donor writes a line that takes your hand and leads you somewhere you didn't choose. When a slogan turns into a leash. The room tightened. For an instant I felt the Pharos signal push back, an invisible hand smoothing hair saying hush. I stepped forward. "I don't want your hush," I said quietly. "I want your choice." Something changed. Not in the sound, but in the people. Heads lifted like all at once they remembered their necks were not hinges. Shoulders relaxed because they decided to. The girl in the front row exhaled like she'd been dared not to. I kept going, not performing now but speaking to the single person in every seat. "You are not a demographic. You are not a mood ring on a quarterly report. If a campaign asks you to go quiet, make noise. If a corporation asks you to believe, ask for evidence. If a voice asks you to surrender, leave them alone with their echo. Jude murmured, awed despite himself. I'm reading desync in the pattern. It's breaking. Keep talking. At the wings, Victoria lifted a hand to the floor manager, signaling something I couldn't see. Security? Containment? Maybe both. A ripple ran along the aisles. Men in jackets beginning to move north and south like a compass learning a new trick. And then the back doors opened without sound. The air sharpened. The Pharos agents coming in weren't wearing insignia. They rarely did. But their choreography had perfect grammar. Ryan was already moving. Of course he was. I saw him slip from shadow to shadow. A grammar of his own. Let me tell you something the donors forgot, I said, voice steady while the room rearranged around the danger. A brighter tomorrow isn't something I can give you. It's something we build by refusing to be bought tonight. The first agent reached the aisle nearest the stage. Ryan intercepted him without spectacle. An arm, a pivot, a disappearance into the dark between rows. The audience registered the disturbance as unease, and then as nothing. That's what he was best at. Turning disaster into a footnote. On stage, I felt the resonance turning. Not mine, ours. The room wasn't listening passively now. It was choosing. People did the basic human miracle, they thought. The hum peeled away like a sticker. Jude's voice spiked. 30 seconds to trace. They're coming for the feed. Then we'd better make the last 30 count, I said aloud, and a few people laughed because they thought I meant the schedule. Maybe I did. You're going to hear a lot of clever language in the next month, I said. Some of it will be mine. Some of it will be theirs. Learn the difference by one test. After you listen, do you feel small, or do you feel responsible? Movement at the left aisle, 2 agents cutting toward the stage stairs. The right aisle, 1 more. Ryan moved like a correction. The first one flicked a blade that wanted to be invisible. Ryan caught his wrist and the weapon clattered like an admission. A second reached for a pistol he shouldn't have brought into a civic building. Ryan's shoulder met his sternum, and the air left him like regret. The audience saw almost nothing. They were watching me, because I was watching them. We are told that people can be managed like markets, that we are curves to flatten and spikes to avoid, I said. But I don't want to manage you. I want to be managed by the same truth I'm asking you to hold me to. My voice carried, not because I pushed it, but because it had stopped trying to be anything other than mine. I felt it then. The resonance Jude had tried to describe with diagrams, and failed. It wasn't a force field. It wasn't a spell. It was a room full of people deciding not to be numb at the same time. Near the foot of the stage, the last agent lunged out of a shadow that shouldn't have existed. Ryan left the wings and crossed the distance in 3 strides not designed for men. For an instant, the light caught him wrong. The eyes went winter, the teeth a fraction too honest, the movement a fraction too silent. The agent saw a thing that didn't fit his manual and broke against it. Ryan didn't roar. He didn't bear theatrics. He protected me the way rain protects a seed relentlessly, without asking to be thanked. 15 seconds, Jude breathed. They're tracing from 3 nodes. End strong. I reached the end I hadn't written, and knew it when I saw it. If the voice of one person can make you believe a lie, I said, then the voice of another can return you to the truth. Silence. A full, clean silence. No hum, no nudge. Just the absence of permission. I let it sit there, heavy and exact. Then, the room exhaled. Applause started in pockets and grew, messy, imperfect, human. The kind that doesn't wait for someone to cue it. The kind that means we chose this. At the wings, Victoria lowered her hand slowly, as if discovering it was hers. Her face was unreadable and wet at the same time. I didn't try to parse it. There would be time for parsing and for anger and for whatever came after. Jude's voice snapped back in my ear. Feed cut. We're dark. Move now. Security really did begin to swarm then, ours, theirs, the city's. The world reached for control. Ryan stepped onto the stage, not touching me, but making the air between us very clear about its loyalties. You good? He said, under the noise. I don't know, I said, and smiled, light-headed with it. But I think they might be. We moved together into the chaos, 2 worlds pressed against one scene. The one where language is a leash, and the one where it's a key. For 90 seconds, we'd held the door open. It would have to be enough until morning. The sky was rinsed clean. Pale morning stretched over the hills, soft and wide, as if the storm had washed the whole world down to its bones. The farm sat a few miles beyond the city, just far enough that the towers were a faint mirage through the mist. The roof still ticked with leftover rain. I sat on the porch steps with a mug of coffee that actually tasted like coffee. Warm, bitter, alive. No burnt filter, no steel aftertaste. The real thing. The news played on a small radio near my foot, static curling around every headline. Ongoing investigation into Pharos biotech. Senator Winslow questioned by federal agents. Victoria Klein resigns effective immediately, citing ethical disagreements. I turned the volume down. The world was unraveling exactly the way it was supposed to. For once, it didn't need my help. Out by the fence, Ryan was fixing something. Wood, nails, rhythm. The morning light caught in his hair, in the silver just beginning to fade from his eyes. No black suit, no earpiece, no shadow missions. Just rolled up sleeves and a hammer. He looked ordinary. Which was almost funny. "You look suspiciously domestic," I called. He didn't look up. "You look suspiciously awake before 9. I blame the coffee. Or the conscience. I smirked. Still deciding which burns worse. The fence creaked as he leaned against it, checking the alignment. The wind carried the smell of damp earth and cut grass. Simple, honest things that didn't require an audience. For a while, neither of us spoke. It wasn't silence like before, the kind made of tension and secrets. This one was easy. A silence that didn't need to fill itself. He finished with the last nail and straightened, looking toward the horizon, where the clouds were breaking open, thin rays of sunlight spilling through. "The world's loud again," he said. "Good," I replied. "Means people are talking for themselves." He nodded once, a quiet agreement. "They're also asking where you are." "I'm sure they'll come up with something," I said. "Exiled genius, whistleblower, unstable asset. Take your pick." He set the hammer down, walked over, and took the chair beside me. The boards creaked under his weight. We sat there, listening to the earth dry. After a while he said, "You've been quiet. You say that like it's suspicious." "It is. You're a man who weaponizes sentences. Silence feels like an ambush." I looked at him over the rim of my mug. "Maybe I'm just enjoying the moment." He arched a brow. "Enjoying? You? Don't sound so shocked." I smiled, small but real. Maybe for once, I don't need to lie. That earned me something close to a smile from him. Small, fleeting, but it stayed longer than most of his words ever did. He reached for my mug, took a sip without asking. "You finally made drinkable coffee," he said. High praise from a man who used to brew despair. "Discipline," he corrected. "Sure," I said, laughing. "You just keep telling yourself that." The sun climbed higher, staining the fields gold. A bird landed on the fence he'd just fixed, tested its balance, and stayed. On the radio, another voice came through. Someone quoting from my speech the night before. If the voice of one can make you believe a lie, then another can return you to the truth. Powerful words from former campaign speechwriter Finn Morris. I reached over and switched the radio off. Ryan tilted his head. "Still allergic to attention?" "Still human," I said. "Barely." We watched the horizon for a long moment. The city shimmered faintly in the distance, rebuilding itself under the new light. "So what now?" he asked. I shrugged. "I write something that doesn't need a podium." He gave a low hum. "And me?" "You fix fences," I said. "Maybe teach me how not to burn the coffee." He chuckled softly, a sound I didn't know I'd been waiting for. "Deal?" The wind shifted, warm and clean. My chest felt lighter than it had in months. Maybe years. For the first time I believed we'd actually made it through. "You know," I said, setting the mug down, "you're different out here." "So are you." I looked at him, at the morning sun catching on the scar along his jaw, at the steadiness that had nothing to do with orders or duty. "Guess that's the point," I said. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The light turned softer, the air full of possibility. In the distance the storm clouds finally broke apart, dissolving into the horizon. The camera, if life had one, would have pulled back then. 2 figures on a porch, one mending, one writing, both learning how to breathe again. After the rain, the world always smells like beginning. Evening settled over the farm like a slow exhale. The sky had gone soft again, lavender melting into gold, the kind of light that forgave everything it touched. The radio on the windowsill hummed through the static, carrying news from the city. Former campaign writer Finn Morris has been appointed Senior Advisor for Ethical Communication at the National Media Council. Ryan snorted quietly from the stove. Ethical communication. That's one way to say, no more lies. I looked up from the laptop. I prefer occupational hazard. He poured hot water into 2 chipped mugs. The scent of black tea and rain drifted through the room. What are you writing this time? A new speech, I said. For them? For me. He nodded, setting a mug beside me, steam curling between us like punctuation. Don't stay up all night rewriting the world. No promises, I said, smiling. Outside, crickets tuned their instruments. The radio faded into some slow jazz piece, leaving only the sound of rain beginning again, light, rhythmic, harmless now. I stared at the blinking cursor, then at the open document. No campaign header, no sponsor watermark. Just blank space waiting to be honest. Lies can taste sweet. But truth, it stays on the tongue. And if you're brave enough to speak it, you're alive. The words looked almost quiet there. Almost human. I saved the file, closed the laptop, and let the sound of rain finish the sentence for me.